Everywhere GBS.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Insight Night as we delve into a discussion on the rising cost of living as well as the new cabinet, which sets to work after the Parliament approved and confirmed all the 22 cabinet members. Dear viewers, we are set to delve into a discussion on this week's political development. And of course, I'll be joined by a political analyst, Mr. Samuel Masika. Thank you so much for joining us in this hot discussion tonight. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, our viewers, the conversation that we're going to have tonight will generally be of the happenings, the political development that have happened during the week as we get to enlighten you and of course educate you. That is what the Insight is generally about. My name is Eugene Ochieng Kwach, and of course I'll be leading the debate, the discussion tonight. Well, you can find us at GBS TV Africa at Eugene Ochieng Kwach. That is where you get to discuss with us. You get to send your messages and of course get to interact with us, of course, as we get to interact more and deeply through a conversation. Of course, a hot debate, of course, with this gentleman here. And thank you so much, Mr. Masika, for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to be joined by another guest, of course, in a short while. But let me just talk to you, first of all. Let's continue with the discussion tonight. Mr. Masika, actually, the Parliament has confirmed all the 22 cabinet members, including the Attorney General, and every proposal, the nominations, the nominees of the President. What do you make of this?
One is that thank you very much for having me, first of all. This is a great opportunity always to get to discuss issues and affairs affecting our country in one way or another.
Yes.
So I'd like to say that I think it was, we were eagerly waiting for the President, William Ruto, to launch his cabinet. And the program was rigorous. We saw the vetting, which was televised live.
Okay.
And every Kenyan was able to follow the debate. And so I want to say that I think these are serious Kenyans that were proposed for the positions. Of course, there are reservations here and there, but no one is perfect. So I want to say that this is a deserving team. And again, you know, performance is not an individual task. So many people will come together, work together with each and every cabinet secretary that was vetted and now sworn in. They have assumed office. I think majority of them have assumed office by today. So work has to start. So as we've been saying, kazi sasa ianze, because I think the deputy president, not the deputy, but the current president has been working with the other cabinet even to foresee some of the things that he has done so far. And I think we'll expect much because there are many promises that he made to Kenyans. And so that now that the cabinet is well congregated, I think now he's getting down to work. And you heard during the swearing in that the cabinet secretary were instructed by the president. A failure is not an option.
Okay.
So I think they are under pressure, and pressure is to perform. There are many issues in the country that are not going on well. We have hunger, we have high prices of commodities. So with a serious cabinet that buys into the vision of the Kenya Kwanza administration, I think things are going to level out.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite interesting. But I want us to get back a little bit on the process itself. The vetting of these members.
Okay.
We have the Parliament actually. You see, those are a special committee that sat down and vetted the nominees, the presidential nominees. And among them, of course, we had both the minority leaders and some who came from the majority, that is Kenya Kwanza Azimio. When they vetted the nominees, they came up with, of course, some reports. The minority had reports whereby people like Penina Maloba, and of course we also had Aisha Jumwa and even Mithika Linturi somehow had some issues. Now that is according to the special committee that sat and was vetting them. But even as this happened, we have all the 22 of them have actually been vetted. What do you make of this? Like, actually, what is the criteria for vetting? What issues, what critical issues actually should be looked into? Because in vetting, what are these issues that has been looked into in vetting generally? What are they looking into?
Okay. So one of the things I think the committee was looking at competence. It was looking at issues of integrity. That is the Chapter 6 expectation. And most of these guys actually met the expectation of the Chapter 6. That is integrity, and majority of them are competent men and women because they have served previously as members of parliament, as deputy governors or MCS, or even initially held very senior positions. So this vetting for me, it is just a way to bring out issues that maybe are not very well known to Kenyans, but most of the guys that were proposed for the cabinet positions were have been public servants. So you have brought out the issues of maybe Aisha Jumwa, Penina Malonza, and then we have Mithika Linturi. I think Mithika Linturi even was frank enough to say that he has cases in court that are pending. But you understand that the law of Kenya allows you to be innocent until proven guilty. And on that basis, the minority side would have wanted to sideline him and disqualify him from the position, which is not the right thing to do. We have Penina Malonza. Penina Malonza also, I think, because the entire committee had ruled her out, but again, when they came to plenary, the House approved her. So you understand that the process of vetting is not an isolated process. There are many things that I think the way Kenya it's framed, or the constitution is framed, you can still make it even if some people think that you don't qualify. If Kenyans want you to serve them, they will still allow you to serve them. So there was the vetting, and the vetting maybe the open committee, because the only person who was disqualified, I think, was Penina Malonza in the report by both the minority and the majority side of the committee. And then eventually when they came to the plenary, she was approved by everybody now in the House. So I think it's a collective process. There's what you think and there's what someone else think, and that is why we have all these guys. And I think the rest of the guys are competent men and women. We've seen them perform. So I think even the people that we are doubting, let us what I can tell Kenyans, we can give them the benefit of the doubt and see what they do. These are qualified men and women, and they have performed before.
Yes. Mr. Masika, let me ask you this.
Yes.
I believe that there is a reason for us to have vetting, and that is why we have a special committee, this vetting committee, that sits to vet people.
Yes.
If at all they have come up with reports that they have seen some issues with this person, and this person, and the same parliament still passes the president's nominees, can we say, therefore, that the parliament is just a conveyor belt for the executive?
I wouldn't look at things like that, because you know, the moment you subject anything to voting, even if it was initially, maybe people initially sat down and they were able to look at things, critique, and then maybe disqualified someone for whatever reason, and then you bring it and subject it to voting, then you're just saying, let the majority have their way and minority their say. So that is, I think, what happened. I wouldn't want to look at it as a way, as the parliament rubber stamping what the executive wants, because at the end of the day, some of these guys were promised even positions as we were campaigning, you know. So some of these reservations that are coming forward, I would look at them as politics for me, but You know, when you're given a position to become a cabinet secretary, you're not going to work alone. We are yet to see the list of the permanent secretaries. Our ministry is a big organization with very many people therein.
Yes.
And so let's not doubt that these guys are going to be able to deliver and work out and deliver for the country.
Okay. So generally, the loyalists of the president were the people that were given different, of course, positions, the cabinet secretaries, and of course even in special committees. Do we now think, or can we now say, because actually we have had cries, the hoi polloi have been crying about the high cost of living and so many issues. Can we now say that because we now have the president with his old government, because actually we can say that he has now structured the government the way he wants, because actually, as you know, the president or the executive cannot work alone. Can we now say that we expect that things to change, maybe in terms of economy or even the politics generally? Will things change? Will we be discussing different things going forward?
Definitely, we are going to have change. We are going to have change, but change, it's a process, because one of the things that I think Kenyans anticipated was a magic bullet, so that once the president is elected, then the prices of commodities will go down immediately. You know, one of the things that the president did, even during his swearing in, he removed all the subsidies that were there on, that is on petrol and food commodities, and precisely that is flour. Because you will notice that unga was subsidized, but eventually what was getting to Kenyans, we could not even find that unga, you know. So he was wondering if in 1 month we are able to spend 7 billion subsidizing flour for people to get ugali, then you would understand that by this time we would be using billions and billions that we don't have. And so he said, let's give us time so that we are able to subsidize production and not consumption. And I think that is what is going on. And immediately he was sworn in. I don't know what was happening, but immediately they were sworn in, then we received fertilizer. And I think some parts of this country currently, people are actually doing serious farming. There are places where we are having short rains, but it's sad that the majority or the large chunk of Kenyan land, it's a aridity now because of the ongoing drought. So I think he recently said that some of the prices that we want him to reduce in 1 year were... It was a process that affected them for 4 years. So we give him time so that within the shortest time possible, because now he has people in different capacities to support. Let's see what is going to happen. That's why I've said, even if there are men and women that we don't like, we can give them the benefit of the doubt and see whether they are going to deliver or not. We have had people like Mulu Mutisia, guys who could not read or even express themselves well, but they left some good legacy in the country. So let's see what the Aisha Jumwa of today can do for this country.
So generally, from your perspective, integrity, which of course is inherent in the Constitution of Kenya, a very good principle actually, as you know, a very common principle. If one to be a leader, you must have integrity because it shows personal discipline. When you talk about Aisha Jumwa and of course Mithika Linturi, some of them having criminal cases at the court. Of course, some of them, they decided to discuss them, solve them out of the issue, out of the court. But still, there's a perception that what is there, Swahili, of course, the Swahili say that lisemalo lipo na kama lipo basi laja. It therefore means somehow for them to have been charged, even if not convicted, but somehow it raises questions or eyebrows on the integrity. According to you, think that that is a non-issue in this government?
One of the things that I began telling you is that if you looked at the framers of our constitution, they said that everyone it's not guilty until proven so.
Okay.
So I am not guilty until it is proven that I'm guilty, and that is what actually Mithika Linturi was saying. And some of the cases, if you're careful, some of the cases against some of these guys have been dropped by the ODPP because some of them were politically trumped up charges, and so they could not hold.
Okay.
And we want to proceed with the innocence until proven guilty principle and see if somebody is going to be charged during office. Because my brother Eugene, it would be so unfair to deny somebody a position because they are purported to have committed a crime which has not been proven. What if we deny them the position and then the court exonerates them? Then it's so unfair to deny somebody a position of service just because of the presumption of innocence, or guilty or innocence, you know. So I know there are cases against Aisha Jumwa, cases of suspicion of corruption, there's attempted murder, you know, stuff like that. And then there are cases, even Linturi brought up his list of 35 cases that are against him. But he was doing that out of the openness and sincerity.
Yes.
That is true, yes, there are these charges in court, but again, you know, I'm innocent until I'm proven guilty. So I don't know what we are looking at the moment, because the Constitution, for me, it's sometimes it's the truth that opposes itself. Because if you say that you must have integrity to hold office, for me, integrity is perceptional, you know. And then these other things are supposed to be proven. Because today, Ochieng, if general feeling in this area is that you're not a good man, then your integrity is not good. But what exactly does the law say? Yeah, you are innocent until proven guilty. And some of the, let me tell you, my brother, if you decide to involve yourself in the politics of this country, you will have to commit some of this. You will even run people down, because I have seen during campaigns, people will even block your car, people will even attempt to do stuff against you, and you will just find yourself in these murky waters. But I'm not excusing crime. Crime is bad, and if crime is proven by the courts, let somebody be charged. But for now, I think let's proceed as if these guys are innocent until they're proven guilty. And I'm sure the president has decided that he's going to abide by the law. And so if they are going to be found guilty later on, it is okay. Let them face the dock.
Or face the music.
Yes.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Let me ask you, there's a question about the parliament, because if they have, you see, the parliament is consisted majorly by the Kenya Kwanza, because actually, and everything that the president sends to the parliament is being passed. Of course, even the recent appointments, the recent nominations by the president, of course, all of them are confirmed. And this shows, of course, the might in power. In generally, it shows their might.
Okay.
Do you believe, or do you think that, because actually the work of the parliament generally is to oversight majorly. They will have to oversight the executive. Do you think they're going to do it in the right way, or even the Kenya Kwanza team, are they going to use their might maybe to help pass some bills that are going to help the country? Or do you see just an opportunity whereby they're just going to pass anything that is thrown to them, a conveyor belt, as I was calling it? Do you think that maybe the president has got too much power over the parliament, because he has got a lot of people from Kenya Kwanza and he controls a huge number? That is why he could use them to his advantage. What does it portend generally to the political landscape of Kenya?
I do not think it is correct to presume that the executive wants to twist the legislature. But if you look at, let's say, for example, you know, when just pre-election pact was that, let's say, for example, Musalia Mudavadi becomes the prime CS. So even if you are in that coalition, then you will proceed as agreed earlier. Because some of the things that are happening currently, I think the Kenya Kwanza administration is just setting up its house as promised earlier during the campaigns, because we've seen now the speakers, the cabinet secretary, and that is what has happened so far. On issues of legislation, I don't think, and again, it's too early to even oversight anything, because even the government has not begun to work. So in my own thoughts, I understand the current constitution places the government in a strategic position to be able to represent Kenyans, to legislate, and also oversight. So I think there are times that are going to come that the parliament is going to seriously oversight. But in this case, some of the things that are being or that are happening today were pre-election agreements that even some of these guys that are in parliament agreed on. The political parties came together and they said, you know what, so and so, come and support us and you'll become this and that. So for now, I think that is what is happening. After which I'm sure then issues, and currently we have now the cabinet being formed, and then now we'll have criticism on policies, criticism on issues that are happening. Now the parliament will be able to perform its work. And I think the way the constitution is it's framed, the executive cannot do anything until it comes to parliament. But I want you to understand, Ocheng, if, for example, we were in a parliamentary system, some of these things will just get through. But because we are in a presidential system, now things are being sent to the legislature, even after the executive coming up with them, and then they are being maybe scrutinized, like the list of the guys that were proposed for the cabinet positions. So it is too early to assume that the cabinet, the parliament is going to be used to rubber stamp anything that the executive wants. It's quite an assumption. Yes.
Quite interesting. Well, I'd love to ask you about, we would love to go deeply into the economics and economics. Of course, we had the bottom-up economic model that, of course, was graciously talked about during the campaign. And I want us just to know, maybe get the specifics of what do you think is happening right now, generally, when we talk about the economics. And of course, with the high cost of living, generally, we're going to look into that. But even as the president is rewarding his loyalists, he read to them the Riot Act. Of course, there's a lawyer who is coming on the show. I would like to ask him, I would ask him what the Riot Act contains generally. But you, as I believe you're an open thinker, what do you think? Why will the president read the Riot Act to his loyalists?
You know, even if you are a loyalist to someone, they want to prepare you to, because one of the things that even before he did that, one of the things that he told them is that failure was not an option. So it was clear that anybody can rise up and oppose any misbehavior, any lack of performance in office. And I think that is what, from my own thinking, that is what maybe the president would have wanted to communicate to them and tell them it is time to perform. It is time to perform. And remember, even if we are going to make you uncomfortable in office, then we are protected by some of the statutes that have been passed by the parliament or part of the law. So everybody has to perform. I think in the nutshell, that is what he was saying. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we are going for a short break. We're taking a very short break. Of course, we're going to come right back to 21144 is our SMS line at GBS TV Africa at Eugene Ochieng-Kwach. And of course, you're following this conversation. Of course, I'm with Samuel Masika, political analyst, and we're getting deeply into this conversation, discussing the Hustler cabinet. And of course, shortly we'll be looking into the economics, of course, the economic model generally that, of course, the president, then deputy president, and now the president, and of course was so much talking about, even as we as Kenyans are crying, of course, crying about the hard economic times that we're facing. While we're going for a short break, please stay with this live. Africa at Eugene Ochieng, where you get to interact with us. Of course, we are still talking about the Deuteronomics and, of course, the Hustler Cabinet. And, of course, I'm joined with Ndirangu Harrison Gachuho, of course, also a political analyst and a lawyer. And I'd love to ask you this, Mr. Gachuho. We were talking about the Hustler Cabinet. What do you think about the cabinet now? Because it has now been confirmed. They are starting a new work. They're starting their work. What do you think about it generally, before we move to the next question?
Very well. Thank you, Eugene, for having me. Good evening. And of course, apologies for being late. Of course, the first quarter of the session or interview, I was still struggling with the snarl of traffic this evening. So, to your good question about you've called it the Hustler, I mean the Luto economics or whatever. Yesterday, the cabinet was confirmed, and so we are waiting the swearing in, which is about to happen early next week.
They'll be sworn in, right?
Yes?
They've been sworn in.
Yes, they'll be sworn in.
They've been sworn in yesterday.
Yes.
You presume so? Okay, well, the same will also happen on the floor of the House early next week. So whichever is the swearing in of the two events, maybe I don't really get it. So to your good question, one, these are more of cronies or loyalists to the president, William Ruto. They've been campaigning together. They understand the bottom-up infrastructure economic model, and so they are up to task, right? And so I think the same goes in hand with the hopes that the citizenry have with the government, and they deliver as soon as they can. What I'm trying to imply is that, one, they understand what they are going to do. They have been to every corner of this country, save for the minister or cabinet secretary for trade, investment and industrialization, Honorable Moses Kuria. He has been campaigning alongside the president. He has been to the coastal area of this country. He has been to the western part of this country, and maybe he observed that Mumias Sugar is no longer operational, and he knows what to do. So I think they have to task, to say the least, and what is required on our part, we as the people, is to give them time and let them show us what they're gonna do. Yes.
Okay, quite interesting. But of course, the last question, being that you are a lawyer, maybe you can tell us about the Rights Act that was read to the loyalists of the president as they set and begin to work, because actually it was read to them, and maybe to people, or even to the people generally.
Of course, it's to his cabinet.
Yes.
Yesterday, because he overemphasized. I think he even quoted, of course, he even quoted the Bible, Romans chapter blah, that those who do evil things, not only will they not fail to go to heaven, but they also have an issue or a problem with the president, all right? And that is the Riot Act, as you may call it. And I like the sobriety with the president and his deputy. Of course, they are not partakers of the whiskeys, and the guys are sober, and so what they are saying, they mean it. And they are also calling upon their cabinet, because I would also believe we may want to start counting the 100 days of their work in office as of today. It is yesterday that the government was properly reconstituted. And the president, together now with his team, are now on a mission to deliver on the deliverables that are in their manifesto. And so, going forward, we expect to see changes. We expect to see the revelation of whatever they promised the people of Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Masika, I'll come back to you just right away. On this question, President Ruto actually rode into office with pledges to lower cost of living and, of course, provide cheap loans to small businesses. We get it the 6 weeks to the, of course, the tenure of the head of state. He has been forced to review some of the campaign promises, and as the reality of the country's true economic picture situation, of course, hits home, and now it will take up to a year to lower food prices. During the campaign, the president said he will lower the prices in 100 days of working. Now, actually, if you look at the prices, they're skyrocketing. They were around, the unga was around somewhere at 220. Now it's 230. Now, what does this mean? Does it mean that why will the president give Kenyans empty promises? Let me pose the question that way.
Thank you, Kwach. First of all, I wanted to, because you are on a show, a public show, I think the sequence is the president proposes names, they go to parliament, then the parliament vets, then they go back to the president, and then they swear into office in the presence of the president, and that is it. They don't go back to parliament again unless it's on issues of accountability. So maybe we needed to put that into perspective. And I don't think in Kenya we have the Riot Act. I think this is something that was in Great Britain, where public officers were allowed to say that any gathering beyond 12 people was unlawful. Yeah, it could be declared unlawful, and they needed to be dispersed. So I don't know, like I told you earlier, I think the president was just like he had said, it is just a prior warning that even if you take this office, we have our expectation as the publics, or as the government. We have our expectation. As you get in, remember, we may still remove you from office if you do not deliver on whatever it is that we promised Kenyans. Back to your question, where you're asking why the president seems to have given promises that he's re-editing a few days into office. Now, there's reality versus idealism, you know. So, because even on his swearing day, you know, by when we were doing the campaigns, unga was to some extent cheaper because there was some subsidy. But he said the subsidy was not sustainable because the government, and then if you understand, the subsidy was going to a few people, the cronies of them that were in power, they look like they're supplying the unga, but even us, the people down here, we were not getting that unga. So I would like to excuse the president for a few more days, because like I've said, there is what you say when you're excited and you want people to give you their support, and now you come and meet reality when you're in office. I wouldn't want to think that his promises are not going to work. They are going to work, but as he said recently, he said, give me time. But on the basis of subsidies, I'm not going to do that for you. And the reason why he's asking for 1 year, if you're careful, he has said, if you are able to manage the prices of food stuff, then you'll be able to manage everything else. I think unga is going up, but cooking oil is coming down. Any careful Kenyan or consumer would tell you that. So there are things that are still going up because of shortage. For example, in maize, unga will go up. And that's why, as we began, I told you, the first thing that they have done, they have brought what? Fertilizer. If you go to the North Rift and some parts of the Western, and people are actually, there's short rains there. There's rain there, and they are doing some plowing and planting maize for food. Of course, like I told you again, there are parts of this country, and it's, God forbid, people are really suffering because of drought and you know, prolonged drought. So there's no sufficient food. So nobody is played. Nobody has been cheated. I want to urge Kenyans to be open-minded, and just give this administration a few more days. And I promise you, especially now with the cabinet in place and policies are going to come up, even the subsidy thing, if it has to come up, then there should be a framework, and it's benefiting who, so that maybe the Kenyan can be cushioned from the high prices of basic commodities. But for now, I think the subsidy, it's not going to work, especially for this administration.
Okay, I kind of get you very rightly, but I still have lots of questions, because editing in itself, and I pose this to you, that editing in itself, the promises, means that is empty promises, because you say that we will do this in 100 days, and then you say that we shall do this in a year.
Yes,
and then you also say that we will be giving you cheap loans, and you again say that these loans are not interest free. You get it?
But is it cheap to mean you will pay interest, but not as high as other institutions?
Okay, but all in all, these things are not like adding up the way he said it. Did it like, is he lying to people yet he knew the reality on things on the ground? Or the president did not quite understand the true picture of the economy at the time he was saying this? Let me post that to you, Lieutenant Rango.
Well, to my understanding, I'll give an example by myself. Like you gave me a call earlier today and requested that we may have an interview this evening, and of course discuss the Hazara cabinet. Of course I was late, but I never relied on you that of course I would come. So, well, as he has said again, I would also want to understand what he has said, that we may want. There's idealism and reality. You may be agreeable with me that he was not part of the previous administration, save for year 2018 to 2022. You are private that, of course, you had the handshake government. He was not really private to whatever was going around, say, on the economic front and what have you, because he was not briefed because of the differences between him and his boss, the president. And so when they took over, Eugene, when they took over, they found that as the deputy president, Gachagua was posting that he only found 93 million. That's aside, I would want to say this. The review is proper because, one, they have identified where the problem is. I've heard him, the president, talk of planting of trees, because like I would understand it, the short rains are not yet with us, and that would mean the weather cycle is not good, all right? And I believe you get it. And so, before we have the weather cycle in order, such that, and you know well that in our country, the irrigation largely the farmers rely on relief rainfalls. You know, there is no serious irrigations in major parts of our country, and that is a major contributor as to why the country is experiencing drought.
Okay.
All right. So why he's pleading with Kenyans, Eugene? Why he's pleading with Kenyans? And I want to approach it as a layman. Why he's pleading with Kenyans to give him an year's time is to see that whatever he promised is deliverable.
Okay.
Because like the subsidy facility, of course the subsidy facility is a facility that is meant to caution the consumers for a short period.
Okay. Let me just ask you this.
But not for a long term.
Okay.
Right.
I have a question to pose, of course. What you say begs a lot of questions, and I just ask the same question. I ask you with this, that from 100 days to a year, of course, that is what the president had said, that we will do it in 100 days.
Yes.
And then he says that, no, we will do it in 1 year. What actually gives us the confidence that the president will actualize his plan to ensure that we have food lowered at lowered prices? Let me just pose the same question to you.
Very well. So,
Yes.
The action plan. The action plan tells it all. So, what is the action plan? Like what I've just said, they are talking of planting trees. Yes, and I don't know.
Which will take 25 years anyway.
No. Like, of course, again, a tree won't grow in a week's time. Now, you know the subsidy. The subsidy, by and large, does not in any way caution those who occupy the lower side of the social strata, because you tax them. Of course, the money that is meant to facilitate these millers comes from the taxpayers. All right. Again, it's paid to them. So at the end of the day, there's no cushioning per se, because like the millers will bill the government 3 billion in a month's time. Of course, the government would pay, but you would receive the unga at 210 shillings. But at the end of the day, this money comes from the taxpayers. And that is why the same was clapped off, so that we can deal with the real scenario and see how we can redeem the situation to a level that is convenient for every consumer. And I think you get it right. Again, these characters, the president and his company, were not really part of the government. So maybe they were not really aware of how the situation is. So they were given the promises, expecting to find a sort of sobriety and
Mr. Gashu, you are speaking like you are new.
No, I'm a layman today. There's no roaring here.
So I'm wondering, the person that you say was new in the government, those people were deeply in government.
I may want to get back to that. You know of the executive order number 1 of year 2020, where his powers, he the deputy president then, were given to the CS.
But it was still in
Matiang'i.
It was still in government.
By title.
Okay.
By title.
Let me, Masika, you have something to say about this?
I think again I want to say that on your question on why I have said this is what is ideal, but this is what is reality, and he gave you a very good example. When you invited him to this show, he had his plan, and he planned actually to come, but in the process of planning to come, there was a traffic snarl on the road that made him delay, but he came anyway. Now I would like to excuse the president for editing his promises some days into office, because now you are in office, you are not in campaign. Things you cannot, because some of the promises were supposed to excite. It was politics. You excite people and quote. Why are we not congratulating this guy for the promises that he has already kept? You know, he has we can count. The port went back to Mombasa. The police now have their accountant, the chief accountant. The judiciary have their money. You know, he has done a lot of things. But there's this one thing. You know, Kenya is purely an agricultural country. You can't promise people to subsidize food in 100 days. Which food crop will grow in 100 days and you have food? He said he's going to subsidize production. So there is reality and there is idealism. What you want, what you think or what you're saying, and now things as they are on the ground.
No,
so one of the things that he has done, he has brought fertilizer, pandeni chakula, you know. So food is going to take us up to 6 months in some places for food to be ready. He has said he's going to subsidize production. Maybe he's looking for strategic alliances and telling them, we are giving you this money to produce for the population.
I get you quite clearly.
Yes.
Now my question is,
yes,
currently we are facing drought. We have places in Kenya that are facing drought. Now when you talk about fertilizers, things that will take, he's talking about planting trees, things that will take so many years. Some will take months, as you have said. Now there are people who are somewhere facing drought, who do not have sufficient food to eat. You get it? These people, you can't tell them of a promise in 6 months if perhaps they will not get to see the next week. Now my question to you is this, that in as much as the president is talking about the long-term effects, the long-term strategies of maybe ensuring that we have sufficient food for Kenyans, what are these short-term strategies that actually he has put in place? Because actually they believe that subsidies was a short term to ensure that food was still sufficient or was still sustainable to those people of lower incomes. Yes, he has scrapped this off. Now the question is, what has the president done to ensure that there is sufficient food, even for those people who are earning low incomes?
Quach, it is always said that if you find yourself in the pit, you stop digging. That is exactly what the president has done. Because what the previous regime was doing is digging one pit by filling another one. So eventually you still have a pit. If you pay tax today, and I use part of that money to subsidize what you're paying tax, you know, it's even a mongrel. Yani you're buying unga that has VAT on it, but because the government has subsidized, you know, it's your money again, you know. You just try to think around this subsidy thing. I am saying suffering may come.
It's okay, I get your point.
Yes.
Now the question is, yes, subsidy has been scrapped off. Now what is there for those who are earning lowly or the hoi polloi?
Yes.
What are the short-term strategies to ensure that they have food on their table?
I wouldn't purport to speak for the Kenya Kwanza administration because I have not been given that role. But in my own speculation, I have told you the government has just been formed. We now have the cabinet. And some of the reservations that we have today and some of the concerns that Kenyans have today, those people are our brothers and sisters sitting there in that cabinet. And let me see, when they sit for the first time, whether they are going to consider the cost of living or not. And I wanted to make one clarification before we move forward. This thing of Kenya planting trees to purport to want to solve the drought problem, this is a global issue. Actually, this drought thing is a global issue. And even us, as we plant trees, I would like all the people in the world to plant trees. Otherwise, planting trees in Kenya alone will not solve a problem in Eritrea. It will not solve a problem in Somalia. It should be a collective thing. I'm also trying to understand that bit where we are supposed to plant trees. But that is maybe to just ensure that we have forest cover to ensure that we protect our water. I like what the deputy president has said today, that he's going to ensure, but in Kenya, like you were saying, we rely on rain so much to grow crops when we can actually use the available water sources. You know, there are places where people have converted even ocean water and they're using it to water crops. We have, like Victoria here, it doesn't dry up. We should see how we can use water from those sources for irrigation and grow food.
Okay.
And that's why my guy is asking you for only 1 year and see how the workability of some of these promises.
I want to pose the same question to you. He has not given me an answer on the short-term strategies to ensure that these people do have food.
The cabinet will sit.
Does it mean that, no, this is to him now.
Plant trees.
So, as the cabinet sits, should those who are facing drought, actually in 40 years' time, we are facing the worst drought ever.
Okay.
Should now these people die as the cabinet sits?
One.
Where?
No, not unless you don't live in this country. We've received, I don't know how many metric tons of rice from Ukraine. No, haven't you not heard of the same? So that is relief food. That's aside there. I may also want to pose to you that the cabinet was structured today. I mean yesterday, or they just got into office today, and it is them to figure out whether they may have the short-term strategies. But what I may want to speculate also is that they have scrapped off those short-term ideas. Because the issue to do with subsidy, and that is what the previous regime was doing. The issue to do with subsidy, fuel subsidy, flour subsidy, but the same was just being enjoyed by a few coffers. Like, for example, the government had subsidized fuel at 59 shillings per litre. When the same was scrapped off, the increment or the hike was just with around, I think, 20 shillings. So the 39 shillings ilikuwa inaingia kwa mfuko. Yes? And this evening I'm telling you as a layman that we may not really need the short-term strategies to caution the consumer, to caution the Mkenya. As he is saying again, you really not need to dig a pit on this side as you feel on this one. So where do you see the beauty? And you may want to convince myself as a layman, where do you see the beauty?
You know, Wakili, you're talking like
that is me today.
A man who is vomiting.
That is me today.
And is not aware of the current
you see now,
facing the common man.
Why we have this interview, this good evening,
yes,
we are talking about the reality of the matters as they are, on the face of it. Yeah? We don't need to really engage on so much of whatever you may call it. We need to see it as it is. Yeah? And that is why I'm seated here as a layman. We don't need those. I mean, the money that the government is using to caution and pay these millers and the market, the oil marketers, is from our pockets. All right? The government does not do any business. It is good that the consumer may feel the pinch, but as we go on, they'll appreciate whatever the government is doing in terms of, say, now, the food, the production going higher, may it be promoted domestic, manufacturing, like in the textile, and they observed this. Yeah, the president during the presidential debate said it. Like they have been to Turkana area, where they were informed that the rock was there. Do they do dispose the hind skins from camel and cows, because their dogs will consume it and die. So suppose we utilize that, it will assist on that aspect. Come to this other area, and all these people, the cabinet guys, they have been with this guy, right? And they understand the bottom-up stories
Okay.
because I don't understand it very well. And so they
sir,
are about
because I
to
know you're
perform.
stuck
No,
on the
Mr.
place
Gasho,
they are about
Mr.
to
Gasho,
perform.
Mr. Gasho, we are going for a short break. You're talking about bottom-up economic model, which is
plant
what you
trees,
do not
but-
understand.
Who?
You talk about bottom-up economic model, planting trees.
If you want
Mr. you have
somebody
something
in
to
me
say?
and
I wanted to say,
execute the same.
I know you're stuck on Harrison because when you asked him for short-term measures, he said, we will plant trees, and I was telling
Yes,
you, I
we're
don't know.
coming back.
I
Of
don't
course, we're
know
going for a
where
very
that
quick
one
short
came
break.
from.
I'll give you a chance so that maybe you can elaborate
That later,
much on
yeah,
that.
it's
We're going
okay.
for a short break. To the one before is our SMS. Please stay with us. the Ruto cabinet and of course the Rutonomics, the Hustler cabinet, of course, then the economics. Now, we're discussing about generally the economy as it is. And I posed a question about the short-term strategic plans to ensure that even this drought that we have is being curbed in some parts of the country. Now, my question, again, still on the Rutonomics, is that the President, William Samoei Ruto, has called on Kenyans actually to pay taxes. According to the reports, we are currently at 2 trillion. That is the tax that we are collecting. But according to him, he believes that by next year, they're projecting a 3 trillion by next year. My question is, how possible is this?
I think maybe, do I go for first?
Yes.
You know, the basis on which the president was saying that, he was asking whether the KRA officers have been asking, because times have changed and you cannot continue to operate like before. He was asking, how would Safaricom say that we have 20 million subscribers with M-Pesa, and then KRA would say we have only 7 million people paying tax. So that on that basis alone, this is to say that even if you have evidence of income in whatever source, then you're supposed to pay tax. And there are people who are receiving payment via the M-Pesa each and every day. I was listening to that conversation, and I think the president was making a lot of sense. Why would we have only 7 million people paying tax when, according to Safaricom, billions and billions of money circulate within M-Pesa? So the president was saying, little as you may be earning, you need to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And I think that is just a basic conversation that every Kenyan should have. And people are evading tax in this country, quite. So the president is just getting creative and saying, KRA, you need to up your game and collect tax. And you will agree with me that 7 million people are not the only people in this country that are having income. So anybody who has any source of money, then should pay part of it to the government, and so in so doing, the government will have enough money. So I think that target is based on such an argument. So it's really possible that we can raise that money as a country.
Mr. Gishua, all this Rutonomics, I call it Rutonomics, does it motivate the taxpayers to pay taxes?
Of course, I'll want to marry that issue with the manifesto and the bottom-up economic model. And they were talking of, one of the suggestions were that they may want to illegitimize the informal sector generally, and the majority of those who pay taxes are those who are in the informal, those who are in the formal sector, like they work in offices and what have you. Majority of those who are in the informal sector, due to the harassment from Kajos, like I would say, we have a very serious businessman who gets his merchandise at Ikomba area or Kamukonji, and then he hawks them around the river road, as you may know it. But this man already will be harassed by the Kanjos. And so that demotivates him or her to pay taxes. I mean, you cannot harass me, then you expect me to do the needful. Yeah. And so that is why I'm saying I want to marry it with the agenda to illegitimize the informal sector. Of course, it's not illegal to sell the mitumba, the clothes, but if again you happen to meet around the Kanjos, then is another story altogether. So if they harmonize the informal sector, and there are so many rich men and women in the informal sector who do not pay taxes. All right? And again, it does not just require to call upon the taxman, KRA, to pay, to try and harness as much as he can, but also to harmonize the whole story. Like I also overheard him say that we may want to rename KRA to KRS, Kenya Revenue Service, as opposed to the Kenya Revenue Authority, because the authority naming has more to do with, I would want to tell you that year 2018, because I had a matter dealing with the tax tribunal, Times Tower, 15th floor, they had powers to access your account or even freeze all your accounts thereafter now proceed to have the hearings with these seniors in the authority, where maybe they would post that you evaded tax while importing whatever you might have been importing, and the whole story is doctored, and eventually you lose your money and your materials, so to say. And so we may want to, maybe have the authority rebranded, again calling upon the staff to do what is required of them, not to harass the citizenry. We may want, on the other aspect, as I have said, to harmonize the whole issue. And by so doing, I'll tell you, as a layman today, we'll achieve the 3 trillion target. Yes.
Okay. Quite interesting. Let me come to you, Mr. Samuel Masika. You look at I want us to, of course, this topic, we're coming to an end of it in this conversation. But generally, we've talked about the autonomics, or the economics generally, that the president is talking about, how he wants to achieve certain things that he has put forward. He has got a plan, whatever he wants to achieve. And some of his plans, of course, he has given strategies of how he wants to achieve them. And some of them he's talking about things that maybe by next year we're targeting around 3 trillion. All these autonomics, do you think that maybe even the one you're talking about, the targeting the Safaricom M-Pesa users, do you look at all these and think that maybe the taxpayers are being actually
Hunted?
Not actually hunted, but does it motivate them to pay more taxes?
I am trying to follow the question, but let me explain maybe the way I understand. You know, what the president is saying, there has been cases of tax evasion in this country. And as he has told you, there are people in the informal sector, people operating very lucrative business, but because they're informal, nobody follows them to ask them to pay tax.
Okay.
People put millions of money under their mattress because they don't see need to open an account. So the president is, you don't need to be motivated to pay tax. It's an obligation. So that is the part where I was saying I was trying to understand your question. Tax payment for any Kenyan is an obligation. And what the president is telling KRA, as my brother is saying, they should turn into a service, he's telling them, stop walking around and looking at who is not doing what?
The question is,
yes,
the president has got plans
yes,
for the people, or the Kenyan citizens.
Yes.
These plans, he has laid down strategies of how he's going to do them.
Yes.
Now, these plans that he has, can we now say that the government, with its plan, motivates the people to pay taxes to service this? The way the plan itself, does it even motivate people that let's spend money because we know that this is the plan, the president is going to use this money for this plan?
First of all, Kwash, I've told you, you don't need motivation to pay tax. Even if you're earning 10 shillings today, it's an obligation for you to pay tax. Two, I think what the question that you're asking is whether the activities that the president is putting in place would motivate any Kenyan to want to commit that I will faithfully pay my tax. I think there's clear plan. The president, first of all, like the housing project, they have already done groundbreaking in Soweto. I remember he said he will not be working with Kasim Mtaani. He will be working, young men and women will be put to work in these projects of the housing project. Most of the things that the president wants to do, you understand, the government, like he told you, has no any other source of money apart from you paying tax. So he's looking at raising the tax revenue from the people, then they will be able to implement most of the economic activities that he has planned, including the housing, including, the universal health care, employment of young people in the construction of the housing project. So money needs to come in, and I'm telling you, nobody needs to be motivated. As long as you're involved in an activity that is income generating, it's an obligation for you to give Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And I think as with this plan, technology and also telling KRA to up their game and come forward and employ the current technology in collecting tax, it is possible for him to reach the 3 trillion. And so when the government raises the 3 trillion, they will be able to implement most of the plans that they have for the people. So this thing, it's how do I say it? If you pay tax, you will get universal health care. If you pay tax, houses will be built where you will pay some little money and own the house eventually. So I think it's a mutual process.
Okay, I get you quite clearly. I want us to move to another topic generally, because we have come to the end of this discussion, and I'm quite grateful because as we've discussed this quite in-depthly. It's about the IBC commissioners, of course. We're seeing that the IBC commissioner, including the chairman, its chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, are exiting the office, of course, as their term comes to an end.
Yes.
We are expecting to see new IBC commissioners in office. First of all, what is the process of appointing new commissioners? What do we expect? You are a lawyer.
So on that issue, one, the process is just the advertisement of the vacant position of whatever the position it may be the deputy, the commissioners, or the national returning officer being the chairman. Of course, I know the very fact that Wafula Chebukati's tenure is coming to an end, save early next year, and necessary they are engaged on contractual basis, and it does not mean that they are all going home, right? As you saw, there were some year 2018. There were some 3 commissioners who resigned, Akombe, Shiroba, and Landaba, and they left, and some new other 4 commissioners came in board. So what I'm putting to you is that they are not, the 7 of them, they are not going home.
We have 3. We have 3 who are going home.
Yes.
Now, my question is, we have 3 who have been a bit, we have had some 4 who have been a bit controversial to the other 3. There's been the other 4 against 3. And actually, there's even a petition that was lodged at the National Assembly seeking to initiate the removal of the 4 independent IBC commissioners. You get it. Now, my question is that we have the 4 versus 3. 3 are going home. We have the 4 that are still remaining at the commissioner. Should they remain? My question is, the people who are getting in, the 3 of them, since we have a government, do you believe that in any way we may have the government's hand in maybe selecting people who are favorable to them, because we had some 4 who actually were against this government that came.
What do you mean? It's a government process. It's a government process. So I think, as you said, the positions have already been gazetted, and the potential men and women needs to apply for those positions. You want me to?
No. My director is telling me that time is over, and of course I'll just leave us to give us our parting shots, even as we come to the end of this show, gentlemen.
Okay. So maybe I'll finish by saying the whole process of picking the IBC commissioners and even the chairman, it's a government process.
Okay.
The only thing I think that you are asking is whether we are going to experience fairness and parity, and so that nobody is going to put there somebody who would favor them. So, being human, I don't know how that is going to be overseen, but I pray that the commission will be as independent as possible. Of course, we have divided, guys. We have the Cherera faction, and we have the Chebukati faction. I think the Chebukati faction is the one that is going home. Then there's the new commissioners, so the 4 who could not agree with the just concluded election. So that there's some division there. Let's see how things are going to work out. My prayer is the 4 can be left in office. I think they have learned their lesson. It's a teamwork activity. There was also ruling from the Supreme Court that is as guiding as it can get. So let's see how things are going to work. For now, I think I'll ask Kenyans to support this administration. It's just a few days into office. So let's see. These guys can deliver. We now have the cabinet. The cabinet will support the president, and maybe in the next show that we come here, we'll be able to scrutinize whatever it is that they have done or what they have not done. As far as the short measures you're asking us, it is speculative for us to even think there are any measures they are going to put in place. But with the cabinet in place, I am sure there are going to be mechanisms to safeguard Kenyans.
My parting shot would be that one, on the issue of the IEBC and its commissioners, Eugene, one, they are contracted individually, like the requirements for the chairman are quite different with those of the other 6 commissioners. And as you've said again, there's a motion in Parliament to house the dissenting 4. Maybe if that is the position, maybe they'll be salvaged or vindicated by the courts. But what I know is that the political honeymoon is over. Now ni wakati wa kazi, right? And so those positions that will fall vacant will be occupied by competent men and women, as we soldier on and focus on the little stuff, which is building of the country as well as the economy, as we deal in harmony as a one people. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, viewers. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for actually accepting my invite on the show tonight. On behalf of everyone who has made this indeed a success, we wish you a good night, and thank you so much for staying with us on the Inside. 21144 is our SMS line. GBS TV Africa is where you find us. Eugene Jinkwach.